Man, I'm really surprised how well the Worm Slayer prototype turned out. It'd be a real shame if I had any sudden realizations about the game. Wait, this is still just a generic roguelike. So it turns out having every enemy be a worm is not a great selling point when I'm only gonna have around 8 enemy types. You know what? We'll deal with that later. Alright, so moving on, you might be wondering what's going on here. So I decided to ignore my problems by working on improvements to the inventory system. I think you can tell it didn't go well. Anyways, I fixed that bug. I've added an extra inventory slot. You can now scroll through your items instead of having to press the number keys. And lastly, you can pick up items from your inventory slots and move them elsewhere or just drop them out of your inventory. The main reason I'm making these improvements is because I plan to add a lot more items in the future. Wait, stop everything, I just had an idea. What if instead of focusing on the worms, I focus on making a fun combat system? You know what, let's do it! So currently the game only has these items, and only these two actually deal damage. So what I want to do is add all of these items. And to start off, I'm going to work on a hammer. So my ideas for this item are that it's going to take a lot of time to charge up, but it's also going to do a lot of damage. And also, it's only going to target worms that are underground. So to start, I decided to do the smart thing and work on polish instead of actually making a prototype for the hammer. So I made a system to generate cracks in the ground whenever the hammer slams down. And then after a bit of procrastination, I actually started working on the hammer. I got working first try. I don't know how I do these things. I'm just too good. Alright, next item on the list, we're gonna add bombs. They're really complicated. You just throw them and then they explode with a bunch of particles. Oh hey look, there goes my motivation! Guess I'll be playing modded Minecraft for the next 2 weeks, and with my motivation back, I started working on my most ambitious item yet. You guessed it, the bomb. So I'd had the idea to add a wand item that would require you to draw patterns in the air to cast spells. So I quickly threw this together just to test it out, and I immediately realized that the shapes are way too big, which made them way too hard to draw. So after a bunch of tweaking, I eventually arrived on this. And with the pattern drawing done, I started working on the spells. First up of the shapes was the square, which would rapid fire a bunch of projectiles. And then the circle spell, which would summon a bunch of explosions centered around a point. And then the star spell, which would summon a bunch of stars in a star formation, that would then break off into shards in a star formation whenever they hit a wall. And then I decided to work on more music. Actually, scratch that. Time to procrastinate for the next 2 weeks. Alright, I have my motivation back now. First thing I added was a class select screen. Each class will start with its own unique set of items. And you'll never guess what happens when you select a class. Ah yeah, that's right, you start the game as that class. Who would have guessed? And now with classes that each need their own items, I want to make sure each one has at least 2. So I added a trap item. It's supposed to resemble a bear trap, but it just looks like garbage instead. So how it works is you place it down, and then you wait 2 years for a worm to activate it. And once it does, it'll do a little bit of damage and stun the worm, allowing for you to easily hit it. The only problem is, it's kind of boring waiting for 2 years for worms to activate it, so I ended up just scrapping it. I didn't truly remove it though, it still exists in the game's file, it's just you can't get it in-game. But that complete failure ended up really demotivating me. I probably could have salvaged it somehow, but at that point I just didn't think it was worth the effort anymore. And with that, I took a quick 3-week break. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see a pattern here. Man, why do I suck? How does everyone else seem to do stuff so much faster than me? And why is my motivation so stupid and inconsistent? Is this all because I'm not using an engine? Hey, guess what? I'm back. Got a bunch of new shit. New ground textures, worm health bars, trackers for worms and certain items whenever they go off screen, and lastly a dash ability. Every class gets to use it, except only this one can deal damage with it. And yes, this is a replacement for the trap. Okay, now we have a problem. I plan on this game having a total of 4 floors, but currently there's no way of getting between them. My solution? Just jump down this pit, it's perfectly safe, you won't break your legs. Each floor also gets its own jingle. Now I know the game's in desperate need of more content right now, but how about we do some polish? I made a display to show the names of items you picked up. I also added a flashing effect to worms whenever they get hit. And then I lost motivation for a week straight. Oh, and did I mention that I lost motivation for 2 weeks before I started working on level transitions? Oh, and okay, I need to do something about this. Alright, I'm gonna try working for a minimum of 1 hour per day. Time to get back to work. I'm finally getting around to making the last starting item. the spellbook. Its attacks function very similarly to the wand, but how you cast them is very different. You have to go around collecting mana to charge up your spells. Those spells being the bolt spell, which will shoot out a projectile that will get exponentially faster with time and also homes onto worm. The blast spell, which will summon a small but powerful explosion centered around the player. And the orb spell, and it shoots what you'd expect. Whenever a worm touches the orb, it explodes, dealing a little bit of damage. It then breaks off into smaller orbs, but then— no wait, no, why is it— no! As I was saying, the smaller orbs can hit other worms, but wait, there's more! Each spell can be cast at a level 1 through 3. Here's a bunch of equations for all the values that change on a level by level basis. I would make a chart, but I don't feel like it, so you just have to do math. So we have 3 different spells and 3 different levels. How's the player going to choose what spell and what level they want to cast it at? The way I have it set up, the player won't have full control. Instead, it'll work like this. So, this is our mana count. Right now it's at 7. This is our current spell. When the player clicks, it will be selected at level 1, and 2 mana will be deducted. If the player holds down left click for another 1 1/3 seconds, then it will select the next spell in clockwise order at level 2 and deduct 1 mana. If we wait 1 1/3 more seconds, same thing will happen again. And if we wait that long again, we go back to the beginning because we've reached the max level. Alright, let's speed this thing up. Time to cast it. When we cast it, our current spell got set to the one clockwise of the one we cast. Now let's do this again. Now we're out of mana, so we go back to the beginning instead. Cycle repeats. Now let's cast this one. Our current spell gets set to the one clockwise of the one we cast, and I'm gonna leave it there because I've been talking about this for way too long. With that done, I added a little cutscene that plays when you launch the game. Do you really think you're worthy enough to take on the Worm King's den? Many of the strongest adventurers have taken on the challenge, and none of them have ever been seen again. Wow, I could not have made this any more cliche. Oh hey, the pause button works. My game's officially better than Fortnite. Alright, now take a look at this bland, boring wall. I hate it. Now look over here at this wall. Pretty. But wait, there's more. Yes. Yes. Yeah! The game's got pretty rocks now. Hey, remember earlier in the video I said I'm only gonna have around 8 enemy types? Well, screw that, because I've got a better idea. Segments with abilities. So each room's made up of a bunch of segments, right? So what if each of those segments had a random chance to have an ability, like shooting spikes or exploding upon death? Well, guess what? I've done just that. Look at it, it's cool. There's also ones with shields which block attacks. And in addition to that, there's now bigger worms on floor 2 that will absolutely destroy you. Remember how you break your legs every time you enter a level? Well, now you can watch as it happens. And with that finished, Worm Slayer is now in beta. If you want to try it out for yourself, then join my Discord server. Link to that and some other things will be in the description. And lastly, if you want to be notified when I post any more videos, well then that's a real shame because YouTube doesn't have any button or anything that would allow you to do something like that.